Hello, welcome to a new video. Today I am bringing you my April wrap up and it is not as good as March's. I did not read 30 books in April, but I did read 20. I read 20 and I didn't DNF any, so I'm taking that as a win. So in the month of April, I read 20 books. I did 7,187 pages, which is the least amount of pages I've done this year, which is shocking because it's not the least amount of books I've done this year. And 62 hours of those was audiobooks. Again, the least amount I've done. January, I did 16 books, but more pages and more hours. I obviously read bigger books then. I read a few chunky ones this month though. Anyway, I did have two stars in April, no 3 stars, 4 stars, and then 14 5 stars. And only 2 of the books were rereads. So I'm taking that as a win. Once again, to no shock, fantasy is my highest genre, with romance a close second, and then I only read dystopian and horrors apart from that, so I'm taking that as a win. So let's get stuck in. I am seeing if I can film this before Gem Sprints. We're gonna see if I can do this. So the first 3 I'm going to talk about in one, and it was volumes 4, 5 and 6 of Attack on Titan. I am having the best time. All of these were 5 stars. I'm having the best time. Levi is still my favourite character, and now I'm starting to think that I'm not really an anime watcher. I've never really watched anime apart from Card Captors when I was a kid. But I am tempted, once I have finished, caught up, I can't remember, I think it's finished, I kind of am tempted to watch the anime of this. And it's definitely not because Levi, being my favourite character, is voiced by Matt Mercer. That's definitely not the reason. So yeah, I am really enjoying the story with this. And I love myself a dystopian. And I'm also loving that I love it because it brings me joy, bringing my friend joy, that I'm reading her favourite and loving it. The updates that I am giving her is just like, this character just did this. I love this character. This person is blah, blah, blah. They're short and sweet updates, but it's given her life, and that is what we want. And that was actually the only manga I read in April. The rest are actual books, like novels. So let's get stuck in because there are 17 of them. So first up we have Heart of the Sun Warrior by Su Lin Tan. I absolutely adored this. Now, I loved Daughter of the Moon Goddess. It was a 5 star and I wasn't sure if anything would be able to top that, but this was beautiful. I absolutely adored this. I loved the direction it went in. I thought it was written so well, and I'm even more excited to read Tales of the Celestial Kingdom, which is a collection of short stories. I'm still unsure whether there is going to be more books in this series because this has ended. It's a duology. It's ended. But for some reason, there is a 3rd book untitled showing on Goodreads, which would mean it's not a duology anymore. So I'm intrigued to find out if there will be more books. I don't think there needs to be, as much as if there is, I'm gonna read it, but 5 star. Next up was How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. So this was a 5 star. And I'm really happy I finally read this. I read Queen of Nothing, which is the final book in the Folk of the Air trilogy. I read that when it came out. Literally the day I got it, I read it instantly. And then this came out and I got it. I've got multiple copies. I think I got 3 copies of this. The white one, the black one, and the Fairy Loot purple one. I still want the Owl Crate one, but I can't get it anywhere. And even more so now that I've read it and loved it. But I've been putting this off for the longest time and I don't know why, but I really, really enjoyed this. And I actually thought this was supposed to bridge a gap between this and The Stolen Heir, which is the first book in the sequel series. It's not. It's literally, a lot of these stories are set when Cardan is younger, before he meets Jude, and then there is like one or two which take place sort of like while the series is happening, and then the final one or two is after the trilogy, and I absolutely loved that. But it doesn't bridge the gap, it doesn't link the two series, it's literally just Cardan. And I love that because I know Cardan was a terrible person, but I loved him, and he was just traumatized. He had a traumatic childhood, and this just proves that even more. So this is a 5-star. I loved it and I'm so happy, and the illustrations in it are absolutely stunning. I'm obsessed. Next up, me and Kelly, after like a year and a half, are back on our buddy reads, and we went in with the second book in the Rainwild Chronicles series, which is Dragonhaven by Robin Hobb. So we did have to read a recap of book 1, which I'm glad I did, because then I went into this and I knew what was going on, because I would not have remembered, because the first book in this series I wasn't a massive fan of. It was a very low 3-star. This, however, I'm happy to report, was a 4-star. I really, really enjoyed the writing of this, and as much as I hate all but 2, maybe 3 of the characters, it is a testament to her writing on the fact that I was invested enough in the story whilst hating every single man in this. And no, there's not actually that many women in this. There's like 3 women, and I only really like 1 of them. 2 at a push. So yeah, I only liked 1 man in this. 1 man. And the cast is predominantly men. But I really enjoyed the story, and I'm excited to continue this. We are now taking a break from this, and we're doing a month of Robin Hobb, a month of the Greatcoat series, and then back to this. So we're doing, we're like being kind to ourselves and not just binging loads of Robin Hobb, because that's what we was doing before, and I think we burnt ourselves out a little bit. But I am excited to continue this series in June. Next up was This Wicked Fate by Kalynn Bayron. This was a 5-star. I have been putting this off purely because I loved This Poison Heart, and I have loved every other Kalynn Bayron book, and I have been terrified, I tell you, because every single person that's read this has been like, it was worse than the first one, and I didn't really like the first one. And I'm like, don't tell me this, because I loved the first one and now I'm terrified I'm not going to love this one. And I wish I had not listened to people so much, and I should learn from this. Like, this should be a lesson learned, because I read this and this was incredible. Did it kind of like go not off track of the first book, but it hasn't got the horror-y vibes as much. It is a bit more leaning towards fantasy. But I still really enjoyed this. I loved the direction it went in, the journey the character had to go on. It was just so good. Next up is For Her Consideration by Amy Spalding. This was apparently a 4-star. I have been thinking this was a 3-star, but according to CawPile, I gave it 4. I've got 3-star feelings for this, but we move on. CawPile has spoken. I mostly enjoyed this. I really liked the plot. And for the most part, I liked the characters, but then I just really didn't like the conflict. And I really need romance writers to write their conflicts better, because if a character does something that annoys me, I instantly then don't want to vouch for them. And that's what happened with this one. It angered me, and I just wanted to rant about it, and then I just didn't care after that. So yeah, if you've watched my unhaul, this is going. Next up, I did my first reread in like over a year of The Love Hypothesis, and obviously this was still a 5-star. Favourite book ever. Had the best time. However, I am kind of wishing I'd read this a week later than I did, because I, after this, read 2 romances that I was anticipating that I hated. So 5-star, loved it. Then we move on to Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. This was one of my 2 stars. Hated every part of this, and it should have been a DNF, but I was determined to give it a proper go because I thought maybe it will redeem itself. No, it did not. If it was just the cringe, here's the thing. If it was just the fact it's really cringy, that would not bother me. But he was a walking red flag. She was so infuriating. But he was a walking red flag. There were so many things he did that just made me so uncomfortable. And they were passed off as romanticised things and like him being really... Absolutely not. Nope, nope, nope. And then in between that and another one I wasn't a fan of, I read The Luminaries by Susan Dennard, and this was a 5-star. I cannot believe I have not read this. However, I'm kind of glad I hadn't read it, because I read this and there's like a couple of like reveals nearer the end of this book that had me reeling, and I was like, I need book 2 now. I don't want to wait for book 2. I have book 2. But then I was having this whole dilemma, like, do I read book 2? Because then I don't have book 3. And what if book 2 ends on a massive cliffhanger? And I was going back and forth with myself for days, trying to figure out. But I loved this. I'm going to talk more in a bit because, spoiler, I did read book 2. And then we move on to my other 2-star, which was Old Flames and New Fortunes by Sarah Hogle. I genuinely thought I would love this. You Deserve Each Other is one of my favourite romances, and I really enjoyed Twice Shy. And I was so excited for this. Like, I got a review copy of this. This is a review copy. I requested it and I got it, and I was so excited to the point that it literally... I got it and I read it and reviewed it within a week, and I've never been more disappointed in a book. I am gutted. So my reasoning is the thing that causes the conflict, I do not agree with. I don't think that's something that can be forgiven, especially with the background information we have on the main character. I don't think he can be forgiven for the thing that causes the conflict. And I also wasn't a massive fan of him anyway. Like, this is a fake dating where she's fake dating a friend to like for a reason, and then he's an ex who comes back into her life. And I already wasn't a fan of him and was already rooting for the friend, because he was amazing. It probably wouldn't have worked out for them, but I wanted that. But yeah, I just wasn't a fan anyway, but it wasn't that gave it the 2-star. It was the whole conflict. I didn't like it. But then we were really flip-flopping, because then I read The Stolen Heir by Holly Black, and this was a 5-star. Like, what was going on with my reading in April? Like, this week was wild. I had a 5-star, a 2-star, a 5-star, a 2-star, a 5-star. It was a wild week, but happy to report this was a 5-star. So I read this straight off the back of reading, basically straight off the back of reading How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories, because I was so engrossed back in that world again that I just wanted more. And I had the shock of my life, because for some reason I thought this was Oak's point of view, and it's not. Oak is a main character in it, don't get me wrong, but it's not Oak's point of view. It's the point of view of a character we've never met before this book. So yeah, that was new and interesting, but I really enjoyed it. I really loved the characters. I loved seeing Oak as like I think he's like 17 in this, because he is a child in the main trilogy. So it was really interesting to see his growth and see him now. And I'm just like, I love this series, and I really want to get to The Prisoner's Throne soon. Next, I read The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. I finished another series. Oh yeah. And this was a 4-star, which I am quite happy about. Would it have been great to be a 5-star? Yes. However, the other 3 books in this series have been a 4-star, and do you know what? That's okay. I still really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed giving Jem updates about mostly 2 characters in particular that are my favourites. But I was having the best time, but just not the best time, if you get what I mean. I did like how it wrapped up. I really, really enjoyed the story in this, and the characters just made me love them even more, which I didn't think that was possible. Adam is still my favourite. I'll fight anyone that says differently because I love Adam. Adam's the best. Ronan is a very close second, but Adam. Next up, I read Good Girls Don't Die by Christina Henry, and this was a 5-star. Like, see what I mean by the flip-flopping books? This was a 5-star. I'm not actually shocked because Christina Henry is my favourite horror author. She's the one horror author I know I can count on. Like, I literally pick up a book from her and know I'm gonna love it, and this was no different. I absolutely loved the 3 different character stories and how everything linked together. It was so cleverly done, and I was just engrossed so much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to The Hunt in Moon by Susan Dennard, and this was also a 5-star. So I had already loved the characters and the storyline in the Luminaries. I will say the Luminaries annoyed me in the sense that she's literally, her and her family ostracized for something her dad did when she was like 12. Why is her and her brother being punished? They were children. Like, to an extent I can understand her mum being ostracized, but why were the kids punished for something the parent did? Anyway, this was such a good continuation. I love the like mystery element of this series, and also the atmospheric vibes of like the forest and the monsters. I love it. And one thing I do love about these books, let's see if I can find one, because they're dotted throughout, and it's like they have monster sheets. So like it says what the monster is, so like Kelpie, and then describes what a Kelpie is. And they have from the Nightmare Compendium, which is what, like, nightmares are the name for the creatures. And they have these dotted throughout, and they have them in the first book as well. But then there's like this one, and the illustrations are stunning, but also just the little, it's just a little extra something. I can't show you that one because that one's a bit spoilery. It's just the extra little something, and it was really funny because in the first book I had a theory and it wasn't confirmed nor denied. In this book, the part of the reason I picked up this book so soon was because I needed to know if I was right or not, and I was not right, but I was on the right track with it. But then there was other stuff that I was like way off with, and I had the best time with this. I am glad I read it, even though I've got to wait for book 3 until like October, November time. But I'm glad I read it, because I feel like if I hadn't read it now, I probably wouldn't have read it until book 3's out. And just, I feel like whilst I was like really itching to pick it up, ride the wave, do what you love. Next up, I read A Light in the Flame by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So this is the second book in the Flesh and Fire series, which is the prequel series. This was a 5-star. Are we shocked? No. I really, really enjoyed this. So it's been quite a while since I read A Shadow in the Ember, and it was really nice to come back to those characters, because obviously the last 2 books I read, I think 1 or 2 books, were in the Blood and Ash series, which is set many, 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 many years after this series. So it's really nice to return to these characters, and I just had the best time. The chemistry between the 2 main characters is just perfection, and I want more. I need the next book. Next up, I read The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. So I read this for the Daevabad read-along, and this was a 5-star. So City of Brass was a 4-star, and I thought maybe this one would be a 4-star and then the final book would be a 5-star. No, this was a 5-star. I loved the direction it went in, but I also now have absolutely no idea where the 3rd book's gonna go, and I'm like itching to get my hands on it, but it's not May yet and it's on my May TBR, but it's fine because it's May tomorrow and I think it's going to be my first read of the month because I just want to read it. I'm just having the best time with this series. The characters are great and I just want more. Next was my reread of A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. Now this, on my previous 2 times reading it, has been a 5-star. I am sad to report it has gone down to a 4-star. Now, if you see on Goodreads, I've still got it as a 5. That's because I'm not changing my Goodreads rating. It was a 5-star the first 2 times I read it. It's going to stay like that on there. But for the sake of my read this time on CawPile and on my stats for the end of this year, this was a 4-star. I'm honestly gutted because I love every Sarah J Maas book I've read, which is everything other than Catwoman. And it just makes me really sad that I'm just not loving this book anymore. And it is purely because of the content of this book in particular and the characters. I know I'll still love the rest of the series. They'll still be 5-star books for me. But this one just isn't it anymore. And that's okay. That's okay. We're going to get back on track with ACOMAF in May. And then the final book I read in the month of April was Beastly Beauty by Jennifer Donnelly. I absolutely loved this. This was a 5-star. I'm really glad because this and Old Flames and New Fortunes I requested around about the same time and received on the same day. So after reading Old Flames and New Fortunes and hating it, I was terrified I wasn't going to enjoy this because I thought, am I just cursed with review books this month? Happy to report I wasn't. It was a 5-star. I loved it. So I read Stepsister many years ago and it was a 4-star for me. And then I read Poisoned earlier this year and it was a 5-star. Whilst this is also a 5-star, this is not my favourite of the 3. Poisoned remains my favourite. But I absolutely love the twist on Beauty and the Beast that Jennifer Donnelly has done with this. It was so cleverly done. And I loved all of the characters. I can't say anything without spoiling it. This one's a hard one because I genuinely can't say it without spoiling. And I don't want to spoil this because obviously spoilers. But it was so cleverly done. And in this, Beast is the girl. But the way the curse is put upon her was beautifully written. And there's the mystery of it. And the mystery of breaking the... it was just so good. Like, every single time Jennifer Donnelly brings out a retelling, I'm auto-buying it. I don't care what it's about. I'm auto-buying it because I just love her books. She just puts such a good twist on them. I'm kind of hoping she's going to write a Rapunzel one because whilst these books are not linked in any way, shape or form, this mentions Snow White, it mentions Cinderella, and it mentions Rapunzel. So I'm hoping that might be a little bit of a hint for Jennifer Donnelly that her next book will be a Rapunzel retelling, because that would be really interesting. But if not, it's fine. I've got 3 retellings that I've really enjoyed by her. But yeah, very good end to the month. So that was all the books I read in April. Part of me was really tempted to try and do 30 books, but I realised this would be a nice round 20, and I was like, do you know what, I'm not going to force it. I don't want to force myself into a slump, especially with how much I want to read in May. So I completed my Times and Treasures readathon TBR, and that's the main thing. So it's okay. But my favourite book of the month. So what was really funny, I was looking through my books and the ratings, and it was looking like it was going to be Luminaries. And then as I got to the bottom, it's actually Hunting Moon. These were my 2 highest rated books of the month, which I shouldn't be surprised. I adored these, but I am just so happy that I read them. But yeah, The Hunting Moon was my favourite book of April, and I'm so happy with that. So let me know in the comments below what your favourite book you read in April was, but I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.